Welcome to the Catholic Sobriety Podcast, the go-to resource for women seeking to have a deeper understanding of the role alcohol plays in their lives. Women who are looking to drink less or not at all for any reason. I am your host, Christy Walker. I'm a wife, mom, and a joy-filled Catholic, and I am the Catholic Sobriety Coach, and I am so glad you're here. Welcome back, everyone. My guest today is Amy Brooks. Amy is the author of two books, the Be Yourself Journal for Girls and the Be Yourself Journal for Boys. She is also the founder of Catholics Online. Amy taught junior high and high school students for 14 years. Prayer journaling and praying with others are two of the ways that Amy navigated some really tough times in her young adult life. So now she encourages others to embrace these practices that provide comfort and joy amidst life's busyness and sometimes stressful stages. So I invited Amy on the podcast today to talk to us about prayer journaling. Now, I've been journaling since forever. Probably I might have gotten my first journal when I was like in third or fourth grade, and it wasn't a journal. It was like Dear Diary with a lock on it, and I would write down all the things and who my crushes were and all of that, and I would lock it carefully so that my little brother couldn't get it and go blabbing to everyone, but somehow he was able to like Jimmy rig his way in there. But anyway, but as I got into my 20s, journaling also, like Amy, became a way for me just to make sense of things like going on around me and make sense of the world. But then it soon evolved into prayer journaling. And I found myself talking to God through my writing or praying with my pen. And I also discovered that that is the way I receive God's words for me a lot of times is through journaling. And he also helps me communicate with others and works through me through writing. And I'm not the best, most amazing writer, but you know, when you're in that zone and God is working with you and through you, you just are able to like do things that you look back on and you're like, did I really write that? I can't believe it. So I'm so happy to have Amy here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much, Christy. Hi, everyone. So great to be here.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about having you on the podcast for a while, so I'm so glad that we finally were able to connect and make it happen. But to get started, I would love it if you would just tell my listeners a little bit more about yourself and then share what prayer journaling means for you personally and how it's impacted your life as a whole.
Sure. When you talked about Dear Diary, it just brought a flashback of when I had a diary in like sixth grade. It was a Cabbage Patch Kid diary. And it had like a puffy cover, and I think it's still in my basement. And I would write about, I think I was 11 years old writing about the boy that I had a crush on, 12 years old. So I had that, and then years went by, and I didn't really journal at all. But what happened was in my 20s, I started dating a guy who, in his teenage years, he started seeing a counselor because he attempted suicide. And the counselor advised him to write things down. And at the time, I was teaching 7th and 8th grade, and the first class of the day was religion. And as a teacher in a Catholic school, the beginning of the day is collect these papers, take attendance, all this paperwork while these 30 kids are sitting in front of you. So this idea dawned on me to just have them have a prayer journal, a notebook as a grade. And I would say, write the Our Father. I would put that on the board. So while I was taking attendance and collecting papers and all that administrative work, they were doing something. And each marking period would come and I say, just bring it up, page through real quick, because I try to give them some privacy with it. And I would give them 100, and they would have like an easy grade for that portion of their academic grade. So I did that, and then said boyfriend broke my heart, and I found myself living in an apartment by myself after all my roommates got engaged, and I had to find my own place. And I started pulling out a notebook and writing letters to God and saying, "Dear Jesus,"
Mhm.
because I just felt so alone, and that made me feel like I was God had to hear my prayer because I was writing it down. I like just writing letters to him. And what I realized through that was I ask God for a lot and I don't thank him
Mm.
that much. And it became clear when I started writing, like, how about you say hello? How about you say thank you? So it really improved my awareness and gave me an outlet that, is actually therapeutic, writing things out. For me, I love prayer journaling because it slows me down. And, we read Be Still, and we live in such a fast paced world. So when we write our prayers, we take more time to pray. And also having that notebook and that pen in my hand really gives you a feeling of nostalgia. And from what I've read, is nostalgia makes you feel joyful. It isn't like an upper. So, but I used it when I was really sad. But then it also became a creative outlet for me. It's an excuse to color, to write a quote, to use stickers. And I grew up same age. I don't know. In the 80s, we had sticker collections. I love
Yeah,
stickers.
me
So,
too. Those stuck on sticker books that they had.
yes, yes. And it's like, I love that. So, for me, I'm not artistically inclined, but apparently, writing is something that I am just, I guess it's a predisposition I have that I've learned more in my adulthood that I do enjoy writing. So, yeah, so there's a lot of reasons. And I think slowing down and, you know, becoming more aware of, you know, your relationship with Jesus through just writing letters. And it really did help. And it really is enjoyable. So now I share that with others.
Mhm. I love that. And I could relate with so much of what you said. And I love that it does help slow down because my brain is constantly going and I've also developed a habit of not just having my prayer journal, but I have what's called a commonplace journal because I'll like hear quotes or read something or see something or, whatever, or think of something. And I'll just write it down in a book just to capture it because okay, I'm almost 50, so it's in my head and then it's gone like
Yeah.
as fast as anything. So if I write it down, then I capture it. And then if I look back, I'm like, oh, God wanted me to know this, or he wanted me to save this for this reason. And I love that so much. And it really does help us connect with God. Because so often I hear women say, I don't know how to hear God's voice. I don't know when he's speaking to me. And for me, like what you pointed out, Amy, is that it's a very tangible way to look back and say, okay, this is God speaking to me. And when it's not, right? When it's like contrary or when it's condemning or shaming or any of that. But when you hear God's voice through your writing or reread it, it just fills you with like peace and confidence and clarity, I feel like. So something that I know some of my clients talk about because I'm always recommending like, can you journal this? Will you, write it down? And some of them are like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not a writer. So many people get stuck and then they feel disconnected like during prayer journaling. So what advice could you offer somebody to overcome these obstacles so that they can build a habit of journaling?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I, even someone who enjoys writing, you don't always know what to write, but I
Mhm.
love using prayer cards just copying a prayer can be prayer journaling. So then you're slowing down and you're looking at every phrase of the Lord's Prayer. Or I remember like my first prayer journal, I found a St. Philomena novena card. So I copied the back of it and then I glued the pretty picture of her on one page, and the other page had the prayer that was written on the card. I just simply copied it. Mm-hmm. And with a novena, novena is something Catholics pray that's 9 days in a row most of the time. And you pray for one certain intention. What I found myself doing was I would pray a novena, and by the third or fourth day, I was changing my intention. Mm-hmm. So, that in a way, I think was God saying, like, I don't really think I have this man in your life for marriage, kind of thing, if I was praying about something that personal. But also I thought, well, let me write down my intention, be more, I guess, intentional with it. Mm-hmm. And then just every day look at this and stay consistent. So it allowed me to really be more consistent in prayer. Mm-hmm. And again, just picking up a prayer card and copying it is a way to slow yourself down and, be with God, just spending that time. And they're not always your words. They're somebody else's words. So sometimes it can just be a quote. I find, I don't know, I'm still navigating what is God saying to me. I often say, you have to, I'm dense, God. You have to forgive me. Like,
be very specific.
Yeah. So, but anytime I've been pretty sure I've heard God's voice, is a very simple sentence. He doesn't speak in paragraphs. He says, I will provide. Trust me. Like, very short, firm sentences. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's all so good and really great advice. And the prayer card thing, you had mentioned it, I think like in one of your reels or something about doing that. And I love buying journals. Like, I have a problem. So, but the problem is like that too. I know. But the problem is I buy these journals and then I get started writing in them, and then I'm like, no, I don't want to use it for that. And then it's like goes out the window, or I'm like so intimidated to start writing that I like fudge it up. And then it's like, so when I read that, to get a prayer card of a saint or of Jesus or, of Mary, and put that in there. And that's what I did. I did exactly what you said. I got that prayer card. I wrote the prayer that was on the back of the prayer card on, and then I was like, okay, it's not this blank abyss of like, it kind of took some of that nervousness about getting started away. So I definitely love that tip for sure.
Yes, I noticed, I guess, in Facebook groups, a lot of people saying, how do you start a prayer journal? I buy the book. I don't know what to do. I noticed that was some dilemma a lot of people had. So I just shared what I do. And I choose a picture of Jesus. It has to be Jesus for me. And I put it on the first page. I just glue it on the first page. And there you go. Because people seem to have anxiety about, what do I do with that first page? And that solves that problem.
Right now, alcohol feels like the only way that you can cope with the stress of motherhood, social pressures, and maybe even fit in with your group of friends. But you're starting to realize that it's leaving you feeling ashamed, disconnected, and maybe even out of control. Imagine if you could wake up each morning feeling at peace and proud of the choices that you're making, and free from the pressure to drink, whether that's at home or in social settings. And that, my friend, is where my 5-day sacred sobriety kickstart comes in. By the end of the 5 days, you will feel more peaceful and in control because you will have more clarity and confidence around your decisions to take it or leave it. You're also going to learn how to manage your mind in a way that is aligned with your faith. You will learn how to speak truth over yourself, and that will help you root out what's keeping you stuck. So check out my 5-day Sacred Sobriety Kickstart and gain the clarity you need to make the decision to take alcohol or leave it from a place of peace. You can visit my website, thecatholicsobrietycoach.com. I have a pop-up there, or just go to my show notes. Okay, so I found this prayer journal that I don't know, I've had for a while, and I've gotten better at it, but I'm not great about going back and reading my journal. But I know that when I've written something, sometimes I'll write out a prayer and then it'll come to fruition like years and years later, right? And then, but I don't always remember what journal it was in. I just kind of remember like, oh yeah, I wrote about that and I prayed about that. But I was looking for something and I found this prayer journal, and in it was an entry from like 6 years ago. And I talked about how I had heard I was listening to Catholic Answers, and I heard a doctor on there. He was talking about like Catholics and recovery and sobriety and all that kind of things. And I was like, oh, that's, it kind of got my mind working, but I didn't really do anything about it. I just kind of was thinking about it. And then later that day, I was watching EWTN and I was watching The Journey Home. And on it, Scott Wieman, who is the founder of Catholic in Recovery, was on it. And he was talking about this apostolate that he started and all of this. And so I started journaling about it. And I was like, I saw this on I heard this on Catholic Answers, and I was watching this. And I was like, God, I just feel like you're calling me to do something with this. Like, I feel like you're calling me to share my recovery story and the fact that I'm Catholic with other Catholics. And I'm like, I don't know how you're going to do that, but I'm open, but you're going to have to guide me, like all this stuff. Right. And I put it away and I didn't really think much about it. I mean, I've always had this sense since then that God is calling me to something, but I didn't know what it was. And I tried things and that didn't work. I tried something else that didn't work. But it wasn't until I finally realized, like, no, God is actually asking you to work with Catholic women who are looking to get sober for any reason and those who are in recovery. There's nobody really out there, no women especially out there talking a lot about that and doing what I need you to do. And so that's when it was like, okay, sometimes God has to beat me over the head with for me to like be like, oh, that's what you're saying. But then when I looked back at that journal, I'm like, I prayed about this. He gave me exactly what I asked for, and like left those holy breadcrumbs, I like to call them, for me to follow to start doing what I'm doing now. So do you have an experience like that with prayer journaling where it did help you like hear God's voice and receive guidance from him?
So I think that God's time is not our time.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned, so I wrote this journal for girls, for Catholic girls. And in my very first prayer journal, it was like in my 20s, I turned to the back one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be a bestseller. And I wrote this outline for Be Yourself. It wasn't published for 17 years later is when it was published, because I was a teacher. I wasn't writing a book. But I just had this idea. And then after I became a mom and I started blogging and I met certain people, a light bulb went off. I said, wow, I had this idea and I found it. The fact that I still had that prayer journal, I think, is a miracle.
Yeah.
I was 17 years old. So that, and, I was going through a lot of struggles with loneliness, and I had gotten this book. You're going to laugh. Judge me all you want. It was like how to make someone fall in love with you. And then the first chapter was like, you should write out who you want to be your spouse. And it gave very specific details, things that I would have never thought of, like write how he votes, write how tall he is, write his age, right? So I did that. And it really fit my husband to a T later when I found it. And then when we were struggling with infertility, I wrote, and I had these on like papers. I don't know if I pulled it out of a book or just wrote it, but I wrote about 3 children. And I have 3 children. So, yeah, I went looking for that recently. I was like, I know I wrote, and I found it. I think I had the gender is a little mixed up, but still the personalities I described are there, and it's really cool. It's pretty neat. So I just always think Saint Teresa of Avila says you pay God a compliment when you ask big things from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your journal is a very safe place to dream big and pray big and allow yourself that imagination and that dreaming and give it to God. It's a very, like you said, a tangible way to give your heart to God. So definitely.
Yes. I love that so much. I love that you said that. It's a safe place to dream big and just pray boldly and ask for, whatever it is. And that's when I have done that. I did the same thing with my husband as well. Like before I was like writing all these very specific things, thinking there's no way there's anybody anywhere like this. And I mean, I guess God had him for me, but yeah, you can just kind of just do it and not feel like super attached to it because you're just dreaming with God. And and then when something does fall within his will and you realize that it was your heart's desire, a desire that God placed on your heart, it's just like, it just fills you with so much gratitude. And I think he just uses that as a way to just show his glory to us even more. Like, I love you. You are my daughter. I want to give you what you desire if it's within my will, because I prayed for a lot of things that I am so glad God did not give me. But those things that he has for us, it's just so, so beautiful to look back and see that. That's why I love journaling, because even if you don't think that you're a great writer or anything, you're just talking to God. You're just having a conversation. It shouldn't be like, some of my journals are horrible handwriting. Some of them I tried a little harder. Some of them are the spelling. Sometimes I write just so fast because I don't know how to spell a word. And I just, there's no spell check, but nobody cares. God doesn't care.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just you talking to the Lord.
I listened to an author speak. He's a pediatrician. He wrote The Collapse of Parenting. I forget his last name, but he was talking about, our culture today and how boys are different, but girls will pretty much post everything on social media, but they're not like when we were young, we would go in our room and write in our diary. Well, now what they're replacing a diary with, an Instagram or TikTok post. And he said one is living and one is performing. So as adults living in the same culture, we're scrolling, we're posting, we have to understand that it's important to have something that isn't a performance, that isn't for others, that is private and allows us to think and work things out. And I think that's really important to bring up today because we live in the performance culture.
Yes.
And when we're performing, we're not living.
Yeah. And you're not being authentic. We're not being authentic when we're putting things out. And sometimes people go the opposite way and they're like so vulnerable and they're so out there with it. But yet it's still for something, right? It's still for a reaction. It's still for they're seeking something by putting that out there. And with having this private prayer journal, or, journals that we have, we don't have to put on airs. We don't have to be anybody who we're not. We're just us with God, sharing our joys, our sorrows, our gratitude, our needs, all of that. So that's such a good point, Amy, especially for young people. And that's why it's so great that you have these beautiful journals that you've created for young people, so that they have this outlet to go ahead and create and not feel like they have to put it out for anybody. It's just for them, and it's just for God. So,
yes, especially with young people, you can't hand them a blank journal. They have no idea what to
no.
write. So they
Yeah.
need some kind of guidance. So I tried to make it fun and enjoyable, relevant to them, but also helpful, especially today with the identity being questioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And that's something that all of us need to really reflect on and think about. So why don't you go ahead and talk about a little bit what is in your journal that you created for girls and boys, and how, like, why it's in there, how it will help them just discern and just kind of be kids and be real.
So the whole reason why I wrote the Be Yourself Journal is because I guess in like seventh grade, I played soccer, I played tennis with a lot of girls that were in my class at school, and they were very cool, and I did not fit in with them. So I went to my mom, and often sad and confused and bummed. And I just said, I don't understand why they're not my friends or they don't like me. And she said, just be yourself, and walked away. Pretty much that's my memory of it. I was the oldest of five. She probably had a baby on her hip. And I just remember thinking, I don't know what that means, and I don't know who that is. So basically, and the girls one was written first, I just wrote kind of the advice that I wish I had gotten. But also at that time, we had something that we called slam books in seventh grade. And it was just like a binder of theme paper. And the first page had your name, and it was like 1 to 24. And everybody would pick a number. And then the next page, you write your birth date. And then eventually you were writing your favorite actor, your favorite movie, your favorite song, favorite color. And we thought that was so much fun. So I combined that with the advice I needed. So it's just looking at, the girls' journal starts out talking about creation and how God created the whole world for us to enjoy. And he created us to serve and love him. And I said, why don't we just stop that? He created the whole world for us to enjoy. Before we're worried about how we're serving God, think about that one thing. The whole world is for us to enjoy. Some people might like to zip line, other people like to lay on the beach. So there's like a game, would you rather? And I ask, would you rather go stargazing or pick flowers? Would you rather? And all these different things you can do in God's creation to enjoy God's creation. And just so they can notice, my answer may not be someone else's answer. I am unique. So it starts out like that, but I also have some saints in there with just some advice that, honestly, I can still use today. St. Catherine Drexel said, peacefully do at each moment what needs to be done. St. Teresa of Calcutta said, never worry about numbers, help one person at a time, start with the person closest to you. Just real solid advice that you can use, especially when you're trying to figure out, oh, what am I going to be when I grow up? Am I going to cure cancer? Am I going to be this great doctor? No, just to help one person at a time. Start with the person closest to you. Mm-hmm. And so I have St. Catherine of Siena in there. I have St. Maria Goretti in there. Just incredible role models and advice that someone maybe who's age 12 or 13 is really looking for, but doesn't know how to word the question. Mm-hmm. So after that came out, everyone's like, where's the boys' journal? So I talked to a friend of mine, Mark, who teaches theology. And he said, girls write lists, boys make plans. So I took his advice, and I had a lot of help from the original publisher, Jerry Winley Doust, who's written about 25 books himself. And again, is discovering who you are and who is God calling you to be. He's calling you to be a peacemaker, a fisher of men. And what does that mean? And how can you be humble? And why should you be humble? And I used other resources. The Manual for Spiritual Warfare is an adult book. I took a quote out of that. And again, try to make it relevant to a 12-year-old boy, but also helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that is so good. So now I think I've seen, do people use these as like, I don't know, just like groups? Do the girls, did I see that somewhere where some of the girls will do it like as a book study or something?
Yeah, well, I created a Be Yourself Journal Club digital guide because a lot of it, like I said, part of it was based on things that we did together. We would pass a book around and talk about our favorite this or favorite that. So, yes, some prayer journaling is private, but the way this is set up, especially if you want to kind of jumpstart their use of it, the best way to do that with a 7th-grade-year-old girl is to get their friends in on it, because everything is social. So the very first, I've done at least one session with a lot of groups of girls where we just, the back cover is blank on purpose so that they can design their back cover. So that's something I've done with them as a group. And I recently wrote the whole club. So I really could have 5 to 7 sessions where there's activities in here that they can do, where they talk about their favorite movies, app. I don't know what else. Like my 80s person's going to come out. TV show. Do they have favorite TV show? Music band, boy band, and it gives them an opportunity to pray for those celebrities that they like. And I even recently started buying magazines because we used to have magazines, we used to put posters on the wall, and I don't know how much they have that anymore, but I found a Taylor Swift magazine, and I'm collecting them so that when I do go places, I'll be like, here, cut out somebody you admire and you can glue it in there and say a little prayer for them. So yeah, a lot of crafty things are in the girls. The boys, I've noticed boys actually do like to color. So there are 2 coloring pages in it. But somebody pointed out there's a Wreck This Journal series. So I put like a Wreck This page activity book where they can get honey and put it on their mud, find a mustard seed, glue a nail on there, all things that are relevant. So things like that. Yeah, different activities that I think would be appealing to that age group. I think most people that bought it at first might have been homeschoolers or just bought it for in-home use. And girls have told me they have 2 copies. So it is something that they don't really need a jump start, some girls, but I've also been suggesting to do this in groups. And I brought it to a confirmation retreat last year too. So.
Oh, that's so great. I love that. And like you said, if you just give them a blank journal, then sometimes they get a little like intimidated by that. But this kind of jump starts them because as they work through your journal, then when they do pick up a blank journal, then they have ideas of things that they do want to put in there or that they do want to, make a beautiful, they find a scripture quote and they just want to make it all beautiful and bubbly and colorful in their journal. And I think it's so great. So prayer journaling for adults, prayer journaling for kids, I just can't recommend it highly enough. And
yeah, I should add, like the girls' journal has like 20 coloring pages. And even with adults, it's an opportunity to color. And there's all those adult coloring books out because it's something that's meditative and relaxing. So you can incorporate that into your prayer journaling too. Yeah. And then one last thing, like some people don't know when or where. And honestly, right now, my life is a lot different. I have 3 kids, but I might take a journal with me to Eucharistic adoration and sit in the chapel and do it then. So yeah, it's not something that I do every day. That's for sure. Unless you're, probably when I was going through a rough time, I used it more often, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always there for you to use it however or whenever you want. Like I have one in my bedside table, and it's not something that I do every day because I'm constantly creating content. So I just feel like that's another thing, but it's there when I do want to, or I need to, or, I'm just inspired to. Like, you need to write this thought down that you keep having over and over and over again. You need to get it out. And
Mhm.
yeah, I just think it's such a beautiful way to connect with God and talk to God. And a lot of times, as I'm a cradle Catholic, I don't know if you are, but we're so used to praying, like the rote prayers or whatever, that, the Hail Mary, the Our Father. And so it can be, for me, it can be very difficult to just off the cuff sometimes come up with a prayer. But I feel like prayer journaling has helped me with that, because I'm realizing you're just having a conversation with God. You're just putting out your petitions, your gratitude, and
Yeah,
and all of that. So,
great. Just simply writing 5 things you're grateful for that happened that day. And
mhm.
even a lot of times lately, I've been just opening the Bible, reading it, and then copying something that I'm like, oh, I
Mhm.
like that, or I want to remember that. And I'll just copy that scripture quote.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being here and for sharing these amazing tips and encouraging all of us to prayer journal. So why don't you go ahead and let people know where they can find your book? I will have links to that in my show notes, but go ahead and let them know where they can find you.
Well, you can find the Be Yourself journals on Amazon. The publisher is Our Sunday Visitor. You can find more information about what I do at CatholicInfluencers.com, but I also have a blog called Prayer Wine Chocolate. So you can find things there too.
Thank you so much for being here, Amy.
Oh, thank you, Christy. It was so
All
great.
right.
Okay,
We'll talk to you again soon.
sounds great. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye. Well, that does it for this episode of the Catholic Sobriety Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would invite you to share it with a friend who might also get value from it as well. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I am the Catholic Sobriety Coach, and if you would like to learn how to work with me or learn more about the coaching that I offer, visit my website, thecatholicsobrietycoach.com. Follow me on Instagram at the Catholic Sobriety Coach. I look forward to speaking to you next time. And remember, I am here for you. I am praying for you. You are not alone.